So I'm gonna go over the trend line chapter about what to do with trend lines, when to use them. I don't really use trend lines, but they do have some major benefits that I think that if you don't fall in the trap of trend lines, it's going to be helpful. And there's really one major reason to use trend lines. One major reason. Well, the study of charts is basically studying three factors: price, volume, and time, and their interplay. So, price and volume, price and time. So, you have price, volume, time, price and volume, price and time, and to some degree, time relative to volume, like if it's increasing, decreasing, volumes increasing or decreasing over time, etc. But I don't want to get into that, but these are the three factors: price, volume, and time. The time factor is gauged by trend lines uh, to a certain degree. I mean, it's also gauged by other factors like, but price and time, like the they basically are the factors of momentum, also known as, I think he called it speed. But that time factor is obviously a critical factor. So the way you want to gauge time is by the use of lines. Now lines also give you like overbought, oversold, and all that. But the real, in my opinion, the real um, benefit of them is to comprehend the time factor in the movement of any stock or any instrument. That's why it's I thought about it, and it really is important. Anyway, so he starts off with some type of physics analogy, and basically it's potential energy to kinetic energy. All right, he talks about potential being accumulated and then kinetic being exerted. All right. Okay. What else? So it gives price movement a certain momentum. All right, that's what lines are all about. The trend line is all about momentum and the measurement of momentum. All right, an indication that the force of demand may be dying out on a rise and counting a superior force of supply is when the price movement has a tendency to flatten out or arch over. Like, as you can see, if the thrusts are shortening and the progress in the closes is very minimal, that's telling you something. It's telling you that the force of supply is there, or the force of demand is dying out, and that together will create a arching over. So like that rounding top. Conversely, in a zone of distribution, the force of supply is being stored up, which eventually overpowers the weakening force of demand, driving the price downward until the force of supply is exhausted. And until there's equilibrium, which is a range. There you go, rounding upward. So that's that rounding top. The stride. When he talks about the stride, it is momentum. Alright, he called it stride. He called it its speed. So Wyckoff did heavily consider momentum because you want the markets that are going to move the fastest, the furthest. So there has to be an element of time, element of momentum. All right, and it is reflected in the upward climb of daily vertical bars on a vertical line chart. All right, so that just means, okay, the price keeps going up. It has widespread. The thrusts are big, not short, and by their angular downward pitch. The eye may not always see the pitch of these angular switches clearly because of the confusing effect of minor irregularities in price movement as recorded on the charts. Therefore, it's frequently helpful to employ trend lines for this purpose. I mean, if you have enough experience, you can tell. You just, you know. But will you always be able to tell? Obviously not. So you want to draw straight lines through successive tops and bottoms of price established during the minor, intermediate, and major moves. Occasionally, the momentum produced by the force of demand and supply will become so plainly marked as to develop a well-defined zone of activity. That is, the alternative buying and selling ways form a price path or channel whose upper and lower limits are easily identified in series of tops and bottoms. Basically, it's within the channel. Price is trending within a channel, and that's great. Lines drawn, as explained in two preceding paragraphs, are called trend lines. And for the reason given on the preceding pages, these trend lines serve to define the stride of the movement. Basically, they define momentum. All right, and also bringing the possibility of the change of trend, meaning a break in the stride. Now, here's the trap. A lot of dudes will think if price breaks the trend line, it breaks the trend. That is false. If price breaks the trend line, it means that it breaks that angle of momentum, that speed. So if you think about it, price that's going, let's say, 60 miles an hour can go down to 40 miles an hour. It doesn't mean it's going to make a U-turn, does it? No, it means that it's just going less fast. That's all a trend line will tell you, unless there are other indications telling you otherwise. The problem that I see is this mistake where people draw a trend line, it breaks the trend line, okay, we're going to short the rally or short the break. That is totally incorrect. Alright? So, and he realized that, Wyckoff realized that because he was very, he knew his stuff. Anyway, to repeat the above in another way, the violation of a trend line often may simplify or signify that the force of demand and supply is now becoming exhausted. This may either mean that the price movement is changing its rate of progress, its speed, or it may mean the trend is in danger. Okay, so all of that depends on other factors. So for example, if you have a trend line and price starts going sideways, it's like, okay, it's just consolidating, it's going to break the trend line. But all it's doing is consolidating. It doesn't mean that it's breaking anything. Even during absorptions, trend lines are broken all the time. So does that mean that the trend broke? No, it's absorbing to continue the trend. So the actual violation of a trend line often may signify that the previous force has been overcome by a new force, which causes a new trend to develop. However, as before, we must look to other symptoms. Alright? So, when you see a trend line break, think about it two ways. Is this a change in trend? Or is it just is price just consolidating and moving into range? Moving into a range, a resting spell, a pullback. That's all. These instructions should be thoroughly understood, because unless you're careful, you may find you have a tendency to greatly exaggerate the importance of trend line. This is what everyone on the internet, on those charts, on these charting sites, this is what they do. They have a tendency to greatly exaggerate the importance of trend lines. Okay? Using them in a mechanical way, saying the trend broke because the line broke. And then what happens? There's one line, two line, three line, and the chart becomes a mess. It is not readable. This was one of the reasons why I didn't want to use trend lines. I find that there's just too many damn lines on the chart. It is bad practice to buy a stock because it has penetrated established trend line, a supply line, or broken out of a congestion area, or to sell it merely because it's violated. Here he says, if it breaks the trend line, don't just buy or sell it. That's what he's saying. It is bad practice. It is mechanical. It is wrong to just short if it breaks a trend line, low or long if it breaks the trend line high. Whatever it is that you're doing. Do not forget, the breaking of trend line by itself doesn't mean jack. It's how the line is broken. And by how the line is broken, it should be added the background of how it broke. It's not just how it broke, but what's in the background before it broke that really counts. The behavior preceding such an indicator must always be taken fully into account. The short, the quality of the buying and selling, and around the point of penetration determines whether the violation of an established stride may be regarded as evidence of further move in the direction of the breakthrough. Or a temporary change. And it's the same thing with the former, this also applies to the range. Like, if you have a range, you have a breakout, how do you know it's a breakout? So break of a trend line sideways, you just move those trend lines sideways, just rotate it a little, and then what you have is not a trend, but you have a range. So how it breaks, like if you see a range, and all it does is goes up a little bit above the high, would you just buy it? Well, similarly, if the trend line just breaks, would you just sell it or buy it? So this applies to ranges as well as channels. And this I see like people go trend line crazy, and that's why I seriously, because I've made a lot of mistakes with trend lines in the past too, and also it becomes a chore. Instead of focusing on the price volume, the trend lines have this effect on people where they will be focused on creating perfect trend lines, forcing the trend lines to fit. Alright, that is, I don't know, it's like a lure, and too much energy is spent on putting lines on every single chart, so that's the issue with them. So they can basically speed up or speed down. Price can speed up or speed down, and that will be shown to you via the trend line. Alright? It necessarily for us to relocate, or that's another word of saying redraw the trend. Redraw the trend line as the momentum changes. So as the momentum changes, you have to redraw the trend lines. And here you have again, you cannot just take a break at face value. And do not draw them indiscriminately for every little thing. The correct handling of trend lines calls for good judgment. With bad judgment, the use of trend lines will produce confusion. You see? He's very right about that. That's why I already learned that lesson. Do not apply them to minor moves. Every congestion area which develops on your chart cannot arbitrarily be regarded as either a zone or accumulation distribution. Many of these formations may be nothing, alright, than trading ranges. So you just draw lines all over the place thinking they're accumulation distribution. That's incorrect. They may be nothing. And they're just neutralizing each other. However, if you learn how to intelligently use trend lines with good judgment, you'll find that they offer good support. Alright. So you have oversold and overbought, and it's again using the trend line like an indicator. So, and also there's something that's really important that you might not find. Trend lines, they imply cycles. Alright, I'm not going to talk too much about it, but if you understand what trend lines are really doing, you'll notice that they're a they're natural tool that results because of buying and selling waves. They're cycles. So when I say successive highs, they're cycle highs. So, you know, when you're trying to measure the next cycle high, you have data of past cycle highs. Past cycle highs of wave highs or whatever you want to call it, they help you predict the next cycle high. Understand? So you're taking past data, using it to create a trend line to project the potential area where the next cycle high is going to be. Alright, these are more of the reason why trend lines are valuable. It's because they can help identify cycle high and cycle low. They can also show you clear breaks in a cycle, especially if you use it with volume and range and spread and all that. They can also, they can to a certain degree, if you know how to use them, they can show you when the pullback terminates and a new cycle has started, the continuation cycle has started. I think he's talking about that. Anyway, so the point here is that you have two defined rally tops. The first at here and the second at there. According, if we draw a straight line through the extreme tops of these two rallies, where's the reach to? See, this is what it is. Okay, when you draw it out, helps to define the approximate limits of subsequent rallies. Okay, meaning like a forecasting tool. Okay, so it's like you have two cycle tops. It can give you the third cycle top if the momentum is the same. Then you have a projected area. Yeah, I don't know. I can't find the chart. I think he JK somewhere. Anyway, though, I think it's pretty straightforward. So again, like the trend line here is just doing the same thing. It's forecasting the area of support and resistance, or the rally high, the rally low. That's all it's doing. Alright, finally, page 16. Let's see what this guy's doing over here. Alright, so you basically have the high to low. Alright, and the sharp rally here breaks the trend. Alright, it's probably because there's ending action here. Dang, right there. Probably a change of behavior either here or here. And then it rallies. So there's your change of pace. ABC. Just bear with me. Any important points, I'll let you know. So he's saying at this point over here, rally, 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 blah, blah, blah. They got this line and it comes over here. It hinges. It's ready on the springboard to rally. So this very important point right here at K, like a few bars after, very important right there. Why? Because the cycle up, down, holding the higher low. Now you have two cycles. You have line from here to here, and a line from here to kind of like here, and they're all coming together to form some type of apex. What he calls the dead center. here's something important. Alright, when the price movement exhibits a tendency to stop short or pull away from an established oversold or overbought position, such action conveys a strong hint of a pending change of pace or a change of trend. That's important. Alright, that means it's not going down to the bottom. It's holding. Maybe it's absorbing. Maybe it's just, someone's holding back. Maybe there's a lot of effort involved. Whatever it is, it's ready to go. Okay, I'm done with this. That's what I wanted to. Okay, so the important things about trend lines. Alright, so let's just sum it up. One, if you don't know how to use trend lines, don't use them. It's better you just stick with support and resistance. Do not draw them for the minor moves. 3, do not use them mechanically and just look for breaks. What you want to use trend lines for are to project the next cycle high. A lot of time prices move to the quote-unquote top of the channel and they end there, or the bottom of the channel and downtrend and climax there. So by taking a look at previous data of prior to cycles, you might be able to predict the potential high for the third cycle high. Same thing with the low. You also have overbought and oversold lines, and if you have price that's fluctuating between the overbought and oversold line, which is basically top and bottom line, what's going to happen is sometimes instead of going all the way down to the oversold line, it's holding. That can tell you that with the other diagnosis that there is a potential of a change in trend coming. Alright, a change of pace. Why? Because it's not going down. The first cycle went down. The second cycle went down to the line. You used it to extend the line to the third cycle down. But now on the third cycle down, it's not going down. Another attempt, it's not going down. It starts moving sideways. It's holding. Why is it holding? Someone is preventing price from going lower. And if it's not going lower, you have to ask yourself why. With your other diagnosis, see if there's climaxing, if there's accumulation going on, and whether it's going to break out of the trend channel, and switch trend. When you're using trend lines, if you see a trend line break, you're gonna look at that break, how it broke, and the background of how it broke, because trend lines break all the time. They break because of a pullback. They can break because of absorption. They can break because of sideways movement. They can break because of a resting spell. They can break because of a counter trend movement. They can break all the time. So how the trend line breaks is important. Noting that when it does break, all it's saying is that there's been a change in momentum, not a change in trend, until you have enough diagnosis for the background to indicate that there is a change in trend. So for all these reasons, it's important. And you have to keep on redrawing trend lines as the rate of momentum changes. If the speed gets faster, you have to redraw trend lines. You can keep your current trend lines, but you have to kind of redraw them to capture the current rate of change. And that is kind of annoying to always draw the trend lines. And then the final thing to note is that trend lines can be a trap for a lot of new traders, even a lot of experienced traders. They will take your focus away from price and volume action and spend your mental energy on trend lines, redrawing trend lines, And I think it's because it's easy or something like that to draw lines. All right, because you see many traders, they're just focused on drawing very precise lines. If you go to like these websites, what do you see most of the public do? They draw trend lines. I think this is the most used tool out of all tools, is the trend line. After that, maybe something like Fibonacci or something. But this is what's used the most, and I think that there's a lot of traps, but there are uses if you know how to correctly use them. How to correctly use them for the following purpose: to project the cycle high and low, to also see if there's a change of pace, to see, meaning that the current downtrend price is not going to the oversold, overbought level, and there's a reason for that. If it's not going down to those levels, it's because someone's holding it back, giving other indications, and you may look for a possible change of pace. So again, to project highs and lows based on prior highs and lows, to help you identify a change of pace. Um, Honestly, that's basically it. The only other thing you're doing with it is measuring the current momentum. But who cares? It goes a little higher, it goes a little lower. So what? All right, so we're done. Thanks.